here's my first question. Why does Matt Gaetz hate Kevin McCarthy? That's number one.
Okay, well, I mean, first, the big scope is in one day, if you do the split screen, you've got the frontrunner for the Republican nomination and former president in a courthouse getting a gag order because of stuff that he was saying about somebody in the courtroom. Whoa, that's never happened before.
Forgot about that.
And then on the other part of the split screen, you've got the sitting president's son in a courthouse entering a not guilty plea to charges that he had previously been prepared to plead guilty to. That's never happened before. And then the icing, the coup de grace. Never before has a sitting speaker of the House been removed. Now, on the one hand, everything has never happened until it does. So what, right? It's consequences that matter, not whether it's the first time that it happened. Matt Gaetz hates Kevin McCarthy for a variety of reasons, and I don't like to question people's motives. But here it seems pretty clear that the motives are in the light most favorable to the defendant. I guess I'd say that this small group of Republican lawmakers believes that the only way to affect change is to make sure that whoever is in leadership is absolutely terrified to defy them. And this is the kind of sanction, the kind of punishment that this small group can deliver in a narrowly divided Congress. If I take it in a light less favorable to the defendant, Matt Gaetz sounds like he wants to run for governor of Florida. Matt Gaetz wants to be very famous and very important. And this is a vehicle to be very famous and very important, certainly. Get you on as you just showed, get you on the front page of every newspaper, makes you the topic of conversation. But it won't change anything, right? But it will certainly make Matt Gaetz famouser.
Mm-hmm. I also heard that he blames Kevin McCarthy for the ethics investigation into him, though they say that actually wasn't McCarthy's fault, but he doesn't like that he's being investigated, and he thinks McCarthy at least didn't do enough to save him. In any event, that's what Kevin McCarthy is saying, that this is all personal by Matt Gaetz. He barely made speaker because they just have such a slim majority in the House. I think it's just a 4-person majority. And so he barely won the speakership, and he had to cut all these deals to get it. Now one has come back to haunt him that would allow any one member to basically force a vote on whether he should stay speaker. That's what Matt Gaetz did because he didn't like the deal that Kevin McCarthy ultimately cut to postpone the spending battle for, 6 weeks or so. Kevin McCarthy did have a deal, as I understand it. He brought it to Matt Gaetz. He brought it to everybody. He said, here's a deal that could do some stuff, like maybe some more border funding. And Matt Gaetz gave him the big middle finger. He was like, not good enough, and sent McCarthy walking because Gaetz said, I'm pissed because you made that deal and you're going to need Dems to support you. This is what a turncoat you are, right? Do I have it right so far?
Well, the point was to make McCarthy use Democrats, right? That was the point, because if you want to remove McCarthy, you need the casus belli, you need the reason. And the reason was going to be that he used Democratic votes to avert a shutdown. Now, we remember when John Boehner stunned the nation and said, I'm not going to let you vote me out. I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm going to put the vote forward, avoid the shutdown. I forget whether it was a shutdown or a debt ceiling lift, but we're going to do that. And then I'm out. And McCarthy said, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to hang. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stay here, and we're going to see what happens. And they did it to him. And I think a larger way to think about this would be, starting with the 2010 election, there's been a revolution inside the Republican conference, and it has intensified over time. And it took down Boehner, and it took down Paul Ryan, and now it's taken down Kevin McCarthy. And the problem with revolutions is they burn themselves out, because you start out and you say, we all want something different. This should be different. Okay, yes. Well, what do you want? And the answer continues to be, well, not that.
Different.
I just don't want, I want that. I don't want that. And it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And if you just try a thought experiment, imagine Democrats doing this. They had just as small a majority in the House before. And it's impossible to imagine Democrats doing this, even with members of the squad, even with radical ideologues and glory hogs abounding in the conference. It's impossible to imagine Democrats doing it, because Democrats are much better at sticking together than Republicans who are just better at sticking it to each other.
They are. The Democrats are. They're good. They get in line when they have to. They fight, but then they bring it home in the end. And the Republicans just wind up killing each other in their circular firing squad. Even when they're winning, they find a way to lose. You know, we've always said never underestimate the Republicans' ability to screw it up. And now they could have had headlines about Hunter Biden and, you know, Joe Biden and the impeachment inquiry. And instead we have headlines about the meltdown inside the House GOP and how they can't even run the one body that they now control. They had the one. They can't run it.
For 2 or 3 weeks, what was the narrative in the political press? Joe Biden is awful. That was the narrative. It was clear. There was a Washington Post poll that showed him getting just shellacked by Donald Trump in a rematch. Every story, every bit of energy surrounded the question of whether Joe Biden was going to get dumped by the Democratic Party. He's not going to be able to serve. And it was a drumbeat. And the Hunter Biden story, of course, reinforces all of that. And the Republicans said, Matt Gaetz said, hold my beer. We don't want to talk about that. That's not what we want to talk about. We want to talk about
back to me.
Back to me. And we want to talk about how angry we are at Kevin McCarthy. And look, being, as you correctly identified, Counselor, being in control of one half of one branch of government is not a sufficient posture from which to advance policy reforms. The best that you're really going to be able to do is stop bad things that you don't like. That's sort of your maximum. And looked at one way, the Republicans have been extraordinarily successful under McCarthy's leadership in this brief period of time. They did get stuff. They did force Biden to the negotiating table, and they did it because Republicans could stick together and they could pass stuff out of the House. That's what McCarthy wanted him to do this time. Look, I know it's going to pass, but we've got to put the Senate on the back foot. We've got to pass something. And this, again, very small number of members of the Republican conference, I think just 8 people, said, no, we don't want to pass something. We would rather feel good failing than we would take the fight to Senate Democrats.
Yeah, shut her down. We'd rather fail. So they have failed, and they had to, in order to get rid of McCarthy, work with Democrats. The ultimate irony. That was McCarthy's sin. He worked with the Democrats to kick this spending thing down the road. And then in order to punish him for it, the 8 had to work with Democrats who were ticked off enough at McCarthy for the impeachment inquiry and blaming a bunch of stuff on them and just generally not liking the Democrats so much that they were like, we're not going to save you. And I understand that too. Why should they save him? They're like, bye. So here's my next question for you, written down. Why is Kevin McCarthy not running for speaker again?
I assume he thinks he either can't win, or in order to win, the concessions that he would have to make would be even more odious than the concessions the first time. A job in which you have responsibility but not authority, you're not really in charge, right? You're a goat. You're there to take the beating for the failures, but you don't really have the ability to lead. And that's where the House Freedom Caucus generally, but this small claque of members, that's what they want the speaker to be. The speakership is envisioned as a very powerful office. Remember, this is third in line for the presidency. And the speakership is envisioned as a very powerful office and lots of privileges in terms of how Congress is run devolve to the Speaker of the House. So what these folks want is somebody who can't do that, who's really more of just a vote counter, right? They just want somebody who's going to go with whatever the plurality of Republicans in the conference want from time to time. And that's not a job that Kevin McCarthy would want to have. So I assume it's those things. And I also assume that, and this is not something that I think would have come easily to McCarthy, because he's been climbing the greasy pole to be speaker for so long. Mm-hmm. And if you'll recall, he was denied the speakership once before, which is how it landed in Paul Ryan's lap because of the complaints of these folks. And there was a really ugly whisper campaign that was launched against McCarthy, and his lifelong, I don't know if it was lifelong, but decades long effort to become the speaker was dashed. And so he gets it back. So he put all of this time and effort into having this job. And I would just say, if he did it for that, if he walked away for this reason, that he thought it would be better for his country and better for his party, then good for Kevin McCarthy. Because as we can see in American politics today, people have a hard time leaving. My gosh, they have a hard time leaving. And if what he said was, you know what, I'm good. If he did what Boehner did or Ryan did and said, I've had plenty and I'm leaving now so that you guys can move on. That's a lesson that both parties in large part can take about letting things change and letting the page turn.
All right, there's less than 10 days left for GenuCell's incredible dark spot package sale. Go to GenuCell.com/MK60, MK60 right now and get their dark spot corrector, a must-have after months of record heat and humidity with every one of their most popular packages. Sunspots, brown spots, discoloration, even those dry, inflamed patches all disappear in front of your very eyes. Kimberly from Youngstown, Ohio writes in, quote, "My appearance has improved so much since using GenuCell on my face. Love all my GenuCell products and my skin looks years younger." Now it's your turn to feel and look like Kimberly, but there's only 10 days left to take advantage of the GenuCell most popular package, which now includes the dark spot corrector plus the classic GenuCell bags and puffiness treatment and its immediate effects product for all 70% off. Try for yourself completely risk-free. GenuCell.com/MK60 today to start looking years, even decades younger tomorrow. All orders upgraded to free shipping. See results day one and you'll get compliments everywhere you go. GenuCell.com/MK60, GenuCell.com/MK60. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.